Well, good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to see everyone here this morning. The sun is shining, so apropos for our solar summit. I'm pleased to be joined today by our Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs, Rebecca Tepper, our Energy Resources Commissioner, Elizabeth Mahoney, our Director, Melissa Lavinson, our Undersecretary of Energy, Mike Judge, Undersecretary of Economic Development, Ashley Stolba, Assistant Secretary Ken Brown. I also want to acknowledge our committee chairs in the legislature, Senator Mike Barrett and Representative Mark Cusack. Thank you to all of the industry leaders who've joined us today for this conversation. And thank you to the labor leaders who were here as well, including Lou Antonellis from IBEW 103. Collectively, you all represent both the reality and the potential for energy investment to create good careers for our residents and, importantly, to bring more energy online as a source to this region, importantly, and also to drive down costs in the process. So we know a few things. We know that the Trump administration has been restricting supply and driving up costs. That's come in a few forms, rolling back clean energy tax credits, including a bipartisan program that has helped make the electricity we need fast and affordable. The administration has slowed down permitting timelines and created other political roadblocks to energy development. They've imposed tariffs on materials that are needed for this industry and other industries, including gas turbines to transformers to steel. And this is going to contribute to delays and also to the raising of costs. And, this is at a time when we all are mindful of both the cost of energy as well as concerns about reliability. But here in Massachusetts, we're taking a different approach. We're laser focused on affordability. And, I've said I want to cut through all the noise and deliver more energy as quickly as possible for people in Massachusetts and this region. Here's one fact that people should know about solar energy in Massachusetts. On the hottest single day of summer this year, behind the meter solar, which is the solar on our roofs and farms and schools, met 22% of statewide demand. That's what's keeping our air conditioners running and our lights on. That's $8 million in savings alone on that one day. And that's why our promotion of an all of the above approach when it comes to energy is really, really important. There's also something else we know about solar. It is the cheapest and fastest energy that we can build. Massachusetts used to be one of the top states for solar installation, and now we're in the middle of the pack. I want to change that, and that's why I've asked the team to come together to hear directly from industry leaders what is slowing things down, what is getting in the way, what needs to happen, okay? There's only so much that we can control as a state. We can't control all of what's happening at the federal level. But my job and the job of this team in this room, including industry, is to figure out what are the things that we can operationalize here, that we have control over? What are the things that we can implement that can help us more quickly install solar and build out operations here in Massachusetts? The case for it is clear. I just mentioned what solar yielded on the single hottest day this past summer, how important that was to reliability and meeting demand. And we know we need to get more energy into the region, and that energy needs to be cheaper for people. And we know that solar is the cheapest way to go right now, and and that's why we need to have this conversation today. We also, this summer, consistent with everything I just said, our administration rolled out new solar incentives on an emergency basis. Those incentives cut down permitting times, they speed up the interconnection process, and they train up the workforce that we need. But I know we can do more, and that's why I look forward to hearing from all of you. My team will be here for this all-day Working Solar Summit to hear directly from the people who invest in, develop, and build out these projects. And I want our residents to know that I'm laser focused on driving down energy costs and finding ways to benefit from cheaper electricity. I also want our 17,000 solar workers to continue to have good paying jobs. And I want our businesses to be able to build their own power. So I'm going to open it up for all of you right now and turn it over, turn it over to our Undersecretary of Energy, Mike Judge.
Thanks, Governor. So I'll be very quick and just turn it right over to Jessica Robertson, who's going to kick things off from the energy side.
Thank you. Thanks, Governor Healey, for bringing us all together today. My name is Jessica Robertson. I'm the Director of Policy and Business Development for New Leaf Energy, which is a Massachusetts-based solar and storage developer. Our mission is to accelerate the transition to a world powered by renewable energy. Renewable energy, though, is under an unprecedented attack from the federal government, but Massachusetts has an opportunity to accelerate the deployment of solar in the next 5 years, in spite of those attacks. Massachusetts was an early leader in solar, but we ran into growing pains that brought the industry to a virtual standstill for several years. But in response, with leadership from your administration, we've made enormous progress in breaking down barriers to solar in the 3 key areas: interconnection, permitting, and compensation. So this has put Massachusetts in a better position than any state in the country to continue to unleash a surge in solar development right now while the federal tax credit is still available, and then to figure out a new playbook for the post-ITC era. So what we need to do now is finish what we started. On interconnection, we need to speed up the implementation of the capital investment projects, or CIPs, which have already been approved by the DPU, and get started on the next phase of long-term distribution system planning as soon as possible. Enabling new interconnection capacity is the #1 thing that we can do to enable solar development. The progress we've made is already paying off. After the CIPs were approved, New Leaf, for example, has been able to return to old landowners in areas where projects were previously canceled due to lack of interconnection capacity and revive those projects. What we need to do now is make sure that the utilities build the CIPs as fast as they can to maximize the amount of solar we can deploy while we still have access to the ITC. Once the ITC is gone, proactive distribution system planning remains our best tool to make solar both viable and affordable. We need to start this planning right away and make sure that it takes a land use first approach so that we're not limiting ourselves to the small fraction of the Commonwealth where investments in grid infrastructure have already been made. The importance of permitting reform also can't be overstated. Until these reforms are fully implemented, there's an increasing number of towns where solar and storage is effectively off limits. Your administration's leadership has broken through this barrier to establish a new system with a standardized data-driven approach to solar siting and much more predictability on timelines and outcomes. There's no other state in the country where we can say that a project that we start permitting in 2026 can know that it will have a permit and when and in time to get online by the 2029 ITC deadline. So what we need to do now is just get the new system up and running as fast as we can and make sure that in the process of that, we're not creating any new forms of red tape. Once the ITC is gone, the new permitting regime will also be a crucial factor in enabling the continued deployment of solar by opening up more opportunities for both solar and storage, reducing burdensome soft costs, and dramatically speeding timelines. Finally, Massachusetts is poised to outpace most other states in solar deployment due to the recent overhaul of the SMART program. There's a lot of details that we're still digesting, but the new annual adjustable rate structure will give us the flexibility to adapt to the rapidly changing federal and macroeconomic context. Your decision to authorize 900 megawatts of solar for the 2025 program year is a powerful statement that the administration stands with the solar industry and is ready to help us squeeze every last bit out of the ITC. So the solar we build now will be the most affordable solar that we will be able to build for some time. And solar and storage are the only, as you said, are the only new resources that we can bring online fast enough to address both reliability and affordability in this era of rising electricity demand. So with your continued partnership, we can meet this challenge.
Well, can folks hear me? Okay. My name is Bronte Payne. I'm a senior policy manager with Sunrun. Sunrun is the nation's largest provider of home solar and storage, and we help Massachusetts families take control of their energy and build a more affordable and flexible grid for all households across the state. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about how we can increase access to home solar and storage here in Massachusetts. I want to thank Governor Healey and Secretary Tepper for organizing the Solar Summit to highlight Massachusetts' leadership in deploying home solar and storage, but also talking about what the state can do at this critical moment to make it faster and more affordable for households to install these resources, which will help the state meet our increasing electricity demands. We appreciate the administration and the legislature's focus on saving consumers money, bringing more energy into Massachusetts, and driving innovation. Sunrun and the residential solar industry as a whole deliver on these exact same goals every single day. As the governor said, and as I'm sure you'll hear a lot today, home solar and battery storage are really critical resources for creating a more affordable electric grid for all Massachusetts households. The state is expecting a really rapid increase in how much energy is needed to power the Commonwealth. And home solar and storage is the energy that we can build the fastest to bring on this much needed generation and to help reduce the need for things like expensive peaker plants and more expensive fuel sources. To give you all a sense of just how much generation home solar and storage can provide, Sunrun, just ourselves, installs a nuclear power plant's worth of energy capacity across the country each year. So while the individual projects for home solar and storage might be small, taken together, they are a really, really powerful resource. And the Massachusetts Connected Solutions Program is really a nation-leading program for aggregating these resources to benefit the grid. Access to home solar and storage is at a really important inflection point, as everyone in this room knows, with the federal residential clean energy tax credit being eliminated at the end of the year and the investment tax credit ending after 2027. Massachusetts really has the opportunity to build on the leadership and the success that the state has had by implementing common sense policy changes to reduce the friction that families experience when installing solar and storage, to make it more affordable by reducing things like soft costs and by increasing consumer protection. These no regrets improvements can ensure that solar and storage can continue to grow in the Commonwealth. So I'm going to highlight just a few policies really quickly. First, to reduce time, complexity, and cost, Massachusetts can cut red tape by streamlining permitting and interconnection for home solar and storage. We can do this by establishing automated instant permitting in cities and towns for projects that are code compliant and meet safety requirements. Automated permitting helps more solar and storage get installed faster and reduces the cost. Second, we can reform the interconnection process by creating a common fee to allocate the cost of upgrades across small solar customers, and that'll allow more families to benefit from home solar and storage. Right now, individual customers are asked to bear the full cost of upgrades, even though many small solar customers benefit from these grid improvements. Really grateful to our utility partners. They are looking to work on this with us. And then third, we can help ensure that consumers are confident in their decision to install home solar and storage. And we look forward to working with state leaders, many of you who are in the room today, on passing consumer protection legislation. And then lastly, home storage in particular supports a flexible, affordable grid and innovative solutions like distributed power plants. By having clear standards and requirements across the state, we can ensure that more families can install home storage. I really look forward to continuing to work with the administration to break down these current barriers and cut red tape for home solar and storage at this really important moment. And just am really grateful for the governor and the undersecretary and the rest of the team's focus on these issues, and look forward to the rest of today.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I am Nick Darbeloff. I'm a senior member of the commercial team at Revision Energy and also president of CBAIN, the Solar Energy Business Association in New England. CBAIN's mission is to protect and promote the New England solar industry through informed policy, intervention, coalition building, and stakeholder education. Governor, I'd like to start by expressing CBAIN's appreciation for the team you put in place to guide our clean energy future. Smart, dedicated, accessible individuals who've engaged with us many times on a range of different issues, thinking creatively and deeply about how to solve problems. Solid progress is being made in reshaping the policies and programs that support solar, and we are truly grateful for this team's effort, hard work, and collaboration. In many other states, solar is being blamed for rising electricity rates. In Massachusetts, I'm very pleased to observe that we follow the data. which tells us that, in fact, the opposite is true. More solar means greater energy affordability. As you noted, on June 24th, solar delivered 5,000 megawatts, resulting in an $8.2 million savings for all ratepayers. Today, Massachusetts has about 5.8 gigawatts of installed solar, a strategic asset that lowers costs, enhances reliability, and drives decarbonization. Solar also lowers infrastructure costs by meeting growing electrical demand locally, thus deferring or avoiding utility upgrades. But much work remains, especially for residential solar. While commercial benefits from the revised SMART program, homeowners remain largely underserved. Supporting residential solar is essential for equity and our broader clean energy goals. To accelerate deployment, CBAIN would like to offer 3 clear priorities in addition to those presented by my industry colleagues. One, although we know that the Solar for All funds have proved elusive, if possible, restore the solar loan program for low and moderate income households so that they can access solar without high credit barriers. Eliminate or increase the cap on residential solar tax credit, as outlined in Senate Bill 2269. Your team's support on this would be most appreciated. Last, ensure that homeowners have the flexibility to participate in SMART or the REC market as they see fit. The loss of the 25D tax credit will inevitably slow the growth of residential solar, and we urge you and your administration to consider supporting these and other measures to counteract reckless policy at the federal level. Finally, as my colleagues noted, the complexity of solar deployment, particularly with regard to interconnection and permitting, remains a major barrier. All of us spend countless hours every day pushing through red tape and countless process steps in order to get our projects connected. Some progress has been made, and good people are focusing their efforts on this, but we must strive to further simplify these processes and eliminate unnecessary steps and costs. Work collaboratively with you and your team to identify solutions, remove barriers, and ensure that solar continues to provide affordable, resilient, and clean energy for all Massachusetts residents.
Governor Healey, Secretary Tepper, thank you first of all for convening the Solar Summit, and it's a great step, and I really appreciate it. It's no sort of it's not an accident that so many of the climate leaders in the industry started in Massachusetts. If you think about it, we had a governor more than a decade ago when Nexam started that was committed to starting a really vibrant solar ecosystem, and there are a number of stories outside of Nexam among our ecosystem that started here in the state. But as Governor, you mentioned, Massachusetts, unfortunately, from the previous administration, really suffered from benign neglect in clean energy deployment. And unfortunately, we fell from the top down into the middle pack. And I'm hoping that the Solar Summit can be something of a sort of comeback tour, where your administration, which is engaged with industry, which is engaged with utilities, which is engaging on hard issues. The issues I think that my colleagues across the table have raised, interconnection permitting, are not easy to solve, and they won't be solved just by these stakeholders at the table. It's a wider ecosystem of stakeholders that we have to engage with. But I want to really reflect on kind of what I've learned as an entrepreneur here in Massachusetts and some of the lessons I think that we can take and hopefully enshrine years ago here in the Commonwealth. It was really to create a regulatory policy that could scale, and that would not have these starts and stops. And it allowed companies like ours to invest heavily in a long-term vision. And I think that goes to our predecessors for setting up that foundation. And unfortunately, the mistakes we maybe made 12 years ago were the limits of our ambition. And we did not realize how large solar and storage could become as part of this ecosystem. And I think the main thing that we failed to really invest in 10, 15 years ago was the grid. The reality is we were not prepared for how much scale we could deliver of clean, affordable energy. But the reality is we need to find solutions where grid investment is not only made based on ratepayers and utility rate cases, but we need a longer-term vision. We can't burden generations with the future of the grid. And that future of the grid is not only for new energy coming online, it's for data centers, electric vehicles, heating. And I think to me, that really is the core issue. As you mentioned, Governor and Secretary Tepper, the reality is solar and storage is going to be the cheapest form of energy with the ITC or without the ITC. We have a naysayer in DC, but the solar industry has a resolve. And what I encourage us to really think about is not only creating policies that maximize investment tax credit here for the next 3 to 5 years, but what's beyond that? How do we create a vibrant solar ecosystem that can complement the various forms of energy, wind, hydro, nuclear, among others, and really be an example? And my hope sort of coming out of the summit is that stakeholders, industry, government, utilities can create a blueprint that's an example for the rest of the country. OBBB is going to increase energy costs dramatically over the next 3 to 5 years, unfortunately, across the nation. It is one of the most inflationary pieces of legislation, not only in energy, in healthcare, and other sectors. But, you know, I am optimistic that Massachusetts, because we follow the data, we have public servants that care about the state and don't want to just score cheap political points, which we've seen in other states and in DC. They want to create something that can create a legacy for our residents here in the Commonwealth. And my hope is here we can really create a framework that creates more jobs, that creates cheaper energy, and that creates more innovation in the state. So I want to thank you really for convening the summit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Governor Healey, Secretary Tepper, thank you so much for putting this meeting together, bringing all our voices in the same room to solve problems. You've been a problem solver from the get-go, and I appreciate the opportunity to have a seat at the table and represent labor at this critical time. My name is Lou Antonellis. I'm the business manager at IBW, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 103 here in Boston. And we stand at a pivotal moment with federal support for clean energy under growing stress, tax credits under threat, funding streams being cut, and uncertainty undermining investor confidence. Nationally, the solar industry is already feeling headwinds that could slow deployment and stall critical job growth. Yet here in Massachusetts, we have an opportunity and a responsibility to show how a state can respond with purpose, with resolve, and with fairness. And I want to commend Governor Healey's leadership for taking bold steps, the revamped Smart 3.0, the regulations that expand community in distributed solar, embed low-income protections, and stabilize incentives. The administration's efforts to reduce or eliminate solar-related charges on ratepayer bills, and the proposal in the Energy Affordability, Independence, and Innovation Act to give the state more direct procurement authority are vital moves to soften exposure to these federal rollbacks. Massachusetts has also enacted streamlined permit extensions, and consolidated siting reviews through new state laws to reduce friction and accelerate clean energy projects. But the work is far from done. To truly embrace and encourage solar while protecting workers and upholding labor standards, we must push further, and we must do it wisely. First, every state-led incentive, procurement, or grant program should require prevailing wage and project labor agreements. That ensures that jobs we create are quality jobs with good wages, benefits, and strong safety programs, ensuring that good jobs we seek to create are not a race to the bottom for the bad actors in our industry. We need to strengthen workforce training and apprenticeship programs specifically for solar installation, operations, and maintenance, including targeted support for historically underserved communities. By connecting solar deployment to labor pipelines like the Building Pathways program and Community Mentors team, we can build inclusive opportunity and resilience. We need to prioritize community solar and distributed generation in dense and low-income neighborhoods so that the benefits of clean energy, lower bills, resilience, local jobs reach those most burdened by energy costs. Smart 3.0, low-income adders, and allocation rules point in the right direction. We should expand that further with carve-outs or allocations reserved for union projects, municipally owned and cooperative installations, and nonprofit-led initiatives. We also need to de-risk capital investment for clean energy projects during this federal transition period. The state should consider loan guarantees, bond programs, or credit enhancement to back projects that meet high wage and labor standards. That helps make projects bankable even when federal incentives are uncertain. And we should closely monitor procurement and contract standards for utilities and third-party solar developers to require labor compliance audits, safety oversight, and penalties for non-compliance. We should insist on transparency and accountability in every subsidized project. And finally, we must continue to build political coalitions between labor, environmental groups, business, municipal, and community leaders to tell a compelling story that clean energy and good jobs belong together. We must press our congressional delegation, align with other states, and push back against any further federal rollback of climate investments that threaten both emission goals and job creation. Massachusetts has already led in so many ways, but in the face of these federal headwinds from the Trump administration, leadership must deepen. Let us seize this moment to double down on solar deployment, not at any cost, but in a way that protects workers, advances equity, and strengthens our local economy. With courage and smart policy, we can turn uncertainty into momentum and deliver a clean, affordable, and just energy future for all our communities. Thank you.
I think with that, that concludes the industry speakers. I think we're going to ask press to leave the room. I don't know if other people